Alblowi and my four colleagues Abdulrahman Buksh, Mohammed Hakeem, Saud Alblowi and Abdulrahman Alhazmi. We're gonna discuss our final term project in decision analysis course about semiconductor conflict between USA and China. First, we aim to analyze the actual problem between USA, China, and Taiwan, to utilize decision analysis game theory to predict the possible settlement. In table of context, first we have the introduction, the historical background, SWOT analysis, conflict overview, decision analysis, status quo, graph model, conclusion, and finally the reference. In the introduction, there was a Cold War due a blood twist between China and USA. The sanction on the 9th of the August 2023 by the USA, and finally China claiming Taiwan attempt. What is a semiconductor and why it is crucial? First, a super performance advanced chip. We can use it in high technology equipment, can handle 300 trillion operation per second. And finally, advanced military and AI application.
Historical background. So, the semiconductor industry landscape, particularly China's ascent within it, has become a focal point of global economic and security concerns. China's deliberate efforts to enhance its semiconductor capabilities since the early 20th century, coupled with significant investment in research, infrastructure, and talent cultivation. China have positioned it as a formidable player in the global semiconductor market. However, this growth has been accompanied by concerns over intellectual property theft and forced technology transfer, leading to strained relations with Western counterparts. The escalating trade tensions between the United States and China, exacerbated by disputes over tariffs and market access, have further intensified the semiconductor rivalry, with the sector becoming a battleground for economic and technological dominances. The geopolitical ramifications of this conflict are far-reaching, impacting airlines, commercial partnership, and technology policies worldwide. Despite challenges such as export control and global semiconductor shortage exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, China remains steadfast in its ambitions for technological self-sufficiency and global leadership in semiconductor innovation. Made in China 2025. Okay, now I'll explain the SWOT analysis for you. So we have three SWOT analysis. As you can see, this is the first one for China SWOT analysis. You can see the strengths point for China in this conflict and the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats also. So one of the strengths for China, that China has a lower production and labor cost compared with Western countries. Also, you can see the opportunities here that worldwide leadership in semiconductor design, production, and innovation. One of the threats is facing China is that if China doesn't find an alternative solution to the problem, Chinese technological companies may be damaged by competitors. By competitors, I meant by Taiwan and USA. Now we'll take the USA SWOT analysis. You can see that one of the weaknesses of the USA is that Taiwan and South Korea are heavily dependent on Asian nations for the production of semiconductors. Also, one of the threats is the global competition, intense competition from other leading semiconductor producing nations, especially China and Taiwan. And now you can see the third and the last decision maker, which is Taiwan. You can see that one of the most strength that Taiwan has, it is that Taiwan controls and produces around 90% of the world of the super advanced semiconductors in the world. Also, one of the opportunities for Taiwan that Taiwan is increasing sales to 26% in US dollar terms. Also, the threats of Taiwan that maybe another company may start producing semiconductor chips. This will make the semiconductor for Taiwan or Taiwan's business go down if there's another competitors.
So here's the conflict overview. The conflict depends between China, USA, and Taiwan. The main opponents for this conflict is USA versus China, and also China versus Taiwan. And the alliances for this conflict is USA and Taiwan. Basically, the conflict is about the semiconductor chip. USA sanctioned from and to China and wants China to reconsider their goal and stop China from claiming Taiwan. So here is the conflict timeline. The conflict started in 2020 when USA banned export to Hawaii and more. Then in October 2020, USA implies restriction on Chinese companies. After that, in March 23, Netherlands and Japan implied export controls, which means indirect attack. Also in May 23, China prohibited the use of microchips in national projects. And then after that, in August 23, China restricts export of gallium and germanium. And then in October 23, USA adds restriction and 13 companies to the list. So here is the fishbone diagram. As we can see, the first branch above, Chinese semiconductor ambitions. This covers China's goals and strategic efforts in developing its domestic semiconductor industry. Then USA-China trade relation. This branch looks at the broader trade relationship and tension between the two countries. And then the intellectual property concerns. This node highlights issues around intellectual property, rights, and thefts. And also, as we can see, the branches below, export controls and entity list, and also Huawei and 5G technology.
So now we're going to talk about the decision analysis. In this slide, we can see a table of the decision makers, or DM, and options. For this table or this conflict, we're going to have a total of 3 DMs starting from China, Taiwan, and the United States. For China, we have one option, is whether to escalate against Taiwan or United States, or both of them, or not. For Taiwan, we have a total of 2 options, which is to defend herself or export to China. For defending herself, it means should Taiwan defend herself against China or not. And export to China means should it continue to export to China or stop exportations to China for the semiconductors. For United States, we have a total of just one option, which is to escalate or not, meaning should the United States help Taiwan in the war or not. And here we can see a table of the infeasible states, or the total states, before removing the infeasible. We have a total of 16 options, 16 states, and we can see that it's 16 because we have a total of 4 options, which means when 2 is raised to the power of 4, it's a total of 16. And to see the infeasible states, we can see that in Taiwan, Taiwan cannot escalate and continue export to China, both in the same time. So therefore, we have removed the states in which Taiwan had both yeses on the exportations and escalate. We can see here that it is on the state number 6 and 7, as well as 14 and 15. So we have removed it, and now we can see that we have a total of 12 states in total. So for the order number, just from the GMCR software, it means that every order number is just assigned for the decimal respectively. So now we can see that we have the DM's preferences starting from Taiwan. We have a total of 4 preferences. The first preference for Taiwan is to keep exporting to China and avoid all wars. Then second option or preference for Taiwan is to just defend itself along USA if China escalates, and as well as stopping exporting to China. For the third preference of Taiwan is for China to do nothing and USA escalates while Taiwan exports. That means that Taiwan is playing on both ropes. That means it has USA on their side and escalation is happening from USA, but they just keep exporting. Number 4, or the fourth preference of Taiwan, is that China escalates and Taiwan defends itself while USA does nothing. This is the least preferred because they're going to fight like directly one-on-one against Taiwan with no aid on the side. For China, we have a total of 6 preferences, starting with first, which is Taiwan, to keep exporting to China and avoid all wars, which is similar to Taiwan's first preference. And the second preference is to announce the war against Taiwan and occupy it without suffering major losses, and USA when intervenes. That means that their second preference is for USA to not intervene. If they do intervene, that's going to be a second or 2.5 preference, which is the first preference, and the second one is for USA to not intervene and just announce the war against Taiwan, and Taiwan will continue just exporting, as it says, without suffering major losses. That means Taiwan will just keep exporting and will not defend itself. Third preference for China is that China escalates, USA does nothing, and Taiwan stops exporting. That means that China will escalate, USA will do nothing, but Taiwan from the other side will stop exporting. But it didn't say that it will defend itself, it just stops exporting. Fourth preference is that China and USA does nothing while Taiwan defends itself. That means that China and USA will just stay neutral, and Taiwan will make itself more defending, so that is politically more preferred for China in state of preference number 4. Fifth one is that China escalates when USA escalates and Taiwan does nothing. That means one-on-one war against USA and China. Sixth, or the least preferred preference for China, is that China escalates when Taiwan defends itself and USA escalates. So that's a war on every single side. Every decision maker's side is starting to escalate and defend itself. USA will escalate, as well as China, and Taiwan will defend itself. This is the least preferred state for China. So for the USA, we have a total of 6 preferences, in which starting from the first is USA prefers Taiwan to stop exporting without any wars, and second is USA prefers Taiwan to stop exporting and defend itself with escalation from China but not USA. So in the third one, it means that USA prefers that Taiwan continues exporting without any conflict. That means like nothing will happen, it just go on as it is. And the fourth one is USA escalates when China escalates and Taiwan stops exporting without defending itself. Fifth preference is for USA to intervene if Taiwan continues exportations and China escalates. Sixth and last preference, or least preference for USA, is when USA escalates, Taiwan continues exporting without defending itself and China does not escalate. That means USA is fighting alone without any escalation or conflict from the other sides. So now we can see the set of possible states here. We can see that we have a total of 12 states, and just to keep in mind, order is respectively assigned to each decimal, as I said. Here we can see the ranking states from most to least preferred, from starting from the left to right. So for China, Taiwan and USA, the most preferred respectively is state 4 and 4, and last for USA is 0. And the ranking order number from most to least preferred, here we can see, which is in order number in the second table down, is the same as up, but just the assignment is different in order number, which is 551. The least preferred state for all decision makers is 10 for China, Taiwan is 11, and for USA is 9. So we can see that over here the preferred scenario, the preferred state for all countries is the state number 5, state number 4, which is order number 5. In this state number 4, we can see that China will not escalate, Taiwan will not defend herself, and it will continue to export to China, and the United States will not escalate. This is also the status quo right now. We can see that in the current conflict, this is what happened, and still it is further to end. This conflict has not ended yet, but we can currently see that there is no conflict, but there's just a Cold War with no escalation from any side and no defending from Taiwan, but Taiwan is also continuing to export to China.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Abdulrahman Alhazmi, and I will continue our presentation. So now we will have the graph model. So we performed the graph model by the GMCR Plus visualizer. So first we did the individual graph model for each decision maker we have. First we did it for China and Taiwan and USA. Now we did it by the integrated graph model. So we complex it in the visualizer, and this is the outcome of the integrated graph model for the 3 players or the 3 decision makers. And after this we did the UIs. We find that the equilibrium point or rational point is state number 5. So in the evolution, the ongoing conflict persists, indicated and continuing process of negotiations and instructions among stakeholders. So the ultimate resolution sought as a rational or equilibrium state aims to satisfy all involved parties. So the evident outcome of the GMCR plus conflicts hints at the potential formulation of a comprehensive plan acceptable to decision maker from China and Taiwan and USA. So in conclusion, the ongoing semiconductor conflicts reveals a complex narrative with the state 5 emerging as a rational resolution that satisfies all stakeholders. So notably reflecting China's preference for maintaining Taiwan's exports without resorting to their action. So this dispute underscores contemporary geopolitical and economical rivals. So intertwining issues of intellectual property, national security and economic competition, which impact global supply chains and strategic dependence. So the evolving conflict's trajectory hangs on the actions and preference of the United States, Taiwan and China, influenced by political, economic and factors or technological factors. Navigating this terrain requires sustained investment in technology, strategic diplomacy, and an understanding of international dynamics, as the outcome holds a broader implication of international relations. And this is the reference we used in this presentation or this report or this project.